Well, everybody, I am super excited to have you meet Chris, who's not only brilliant and has one of my very favorite products, but is fun.
It's not mutually exclusive.
I want to start out just by saying, like, can you explain what C60 is? Because whenever someone sees MyVitalC, the number one question is, well, Sarah, I'm already taking a vitamin C, so why do I need this? And I then go into, well, this is not vitamin C, but so why don't you take it from there?
Absolutely. Well, the C first, thank you for having me. I'm glad to meet everybody in your group, and you've put a lot of pressure on me. Hopefully I can make this fun. So the C in MyVitalC stands for carbon, because the C in MyVitalC is carbon. And in fact, it's this carbon. So some of you may not be able to, I saw somebody driving earlier. Please don't look at the screen. I'll describe this for you perfectly. If you imagine a soccer ball, the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. And so that's a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. The molecule was actually discovered here in Houston. That's where we're based, at Rice University in 1985. And the three scientists who discovered that material actually went on to win the Nobel Prize in 96. That's a short 11 years from discovery to actually winning the Nobel Prize, which is obviously very exciting. So our MyVitalC product is based on Nobel Prize winning chemistry. In the early stages, so again, we're back in, it discovered 86, it's 85, Nobel Prize in 96. In the early days, we were manufacturing and distributing carbon nanomaterials to research institutions around the world, where they would use it in very much industrial applications. Probably the two kind of best applications were batteries and photocells. So you're like, okay, well, that makes me nervous. Why are we still talking about this? In 2012, they published the results of what was a toxicity study. So for various reasons, they thought that this molecule, the soccer ball shaped molecule, would be toxic. And they did this toxicity study. Instead of being toxic, the rats that they gave the product to, in this case, it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group, and they all died without tumors. So both of those are pretty incredible results. The 90% extension of life is the single longest longevity experimental result in history. The next best way to live longer is called calorie restriction. Basically, if you reduce your calorie consumption by 30%, it's well documented in multiple animal models that you can extend your life by 30%. I call that the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. And a lot of people, I know Sarah's not promoting that particular diet.
Nope, I actually just wrote an article on why it doesn't work.
Oh, well, really?
Calorie counting. I'm not saying calorie restriction, but I also want to stop you right there, because people talk, there's a lot of products, especially in my field, that I claim, extend your life or longevity. You have a study that truly maps it out 90% longer. So, and it's awe-inspiring as far as the fact that this is not just words that are being thrown out there, but that there's the research behind it. So I just wanted to amplify that statement.
Yeah, well, and it's peer-reviewed published research, right? That pinnacle, well, not the total pinnacle, because like in an ideal world, we'd like to have human trials, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials, which are, as you know, insanely expensive. And frankly, we hope to get there someday. Like, really, the next step, if you go back and you think, this study was published in 2012. It's out of the University of Paris. Again, the rats given the MyVitalC formula lived 90% longer and died with no tumors. Let me touch on that a little bit. So a typical Wistar rat will live 32 months and they'll die with a known amount of tumors. The longer they live, the more tumor mass they have in their body. Even though the MyVitalC rats lived out to 62 months, again, 90% longer, none of them had any tumors, which is a pretty phenomenal result. And really, the way the scientific process works is you have a hypothesis. Ironically, with this particular product, the hypothesis was that it was toxic. You get a result, and the result is that it extends life by 90%. And then another group comes in and performs the same experiment. No one's actually stepped up since it was published in 2012 to do that. So we're in the process of doing that. And I think that's something that makes us very different. And I can talk about how actually tried very hard not to get into the supplement industry. And I think it separates us from the supplement industry in general. People will come out with supplements, and then you won't see them doing most of them doing a lot of research to try and verify the product. And I understand the kind of the business case to not do it. I don't understand the kind of scientific, there is no scientific case to not do it. The scientific case is, let's do this research. Let's make these things happen.
Got it. Well, why don't we talk about the other benefits just in the world of what, and we're getting into fall and full cold and flu season. And I know that, my college son is fighting a little cold. It's not COVID. So there's other stuff out there, guys. Right. Yeah. So how it is antiviral, an antibiotic. And then also I want to touch on the HIV.
Yeah, absolutely. So this will lead right into it. So when that first result came out, people, and as I talk about it, people are often like, well, hey, why did those rats live 90% longer? And current medical thought process about aging is that aging is an inflammation and an oxidation issue. Like our bodies are oxidated to old age, they're inflamed to old age. And it's very interesting as it relates to oxidation. There's at least one study out there that shows our product to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C as an antioxidant. So great, we check that box. When we start talking about inflammation, we have to be very careful and understand what the FDA will and will not let us say. What the FDA will let us say is that it works on inflammation, at least as that inflammation is related to exercise. So we've all had a really good workout or just a long day where we're walking all day and our bodies are inflamed and we can feel that pain. We know that our product works in that context, and the FDA allows us to say it. What the FDA doesn't allow us to say is, hey, it addresses inflammation in all those other areas that are typically associated with disease. And that's why the FDA kind of has to tie our hands on that. What we can say is that it fits perfectly in an anti-inflammatory diet. That's a diet associated with the blue zones. That's a diet associated with reduced incidences of stroke, reduced incidences of heart attack, and in fact, longer lives. So it's interesting the medical community's thought process about aging and how the product fits inside of that. So we've got antioxidant and then again, anti-inflammatory as it relates to exercise inflammation. Now we can talk about antibiotics. So it is a known antibiotic. And a known antibacterial and a known antiviral. In fact, you mentioned HIV. There's actually patents related to this core molecule. We kind of affectionately call it a buckyball. We call the molecule, when it's processed for safe human consumption, we call it ESS 60. So there's patents related to ESS 60 and how they are useful in preventing the AIDS virus from replicating. So actually stopping the replication of the AIDS virus. That's, what we would call an antiviral. So it's got all of these components built in together. And if you're talking about overall health, right, if we're talking about fighting the cold or the flu, or maybe having some, and we're not saying that this is having some, but, just putting your body in a healthy state so it's better able to defend against whatever it's got to defend against. Our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. Now, sleep is by far the best restorative and healing medicine that we have access to, and it's free. Well, I guess the cost is you have to be asleep, but it's free and incredibly important. I always like to steer people to a book called Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker, which is an absolutely phenomenal book And it's also the scariest book you'll ever read about sleep. I kind of call it the Freddy Krueger of sleep books, because it goes in and documents like 25 plus years of research into sleep and how, and the lack of sleep, its detrimental effects on human health. And I always like to share one. Every year we do 2 horrible sleep experiments called daylight savings time, where we at one point of the year gain an hour, at the other point of the year lose an hour. And what a lot of people don't realize is when we gain an hour, heart attacks go down by about 30%. When we lose that hour, heart attacks go up by about 30%. So sleep absolutely impacts your cardiovascular health, and then your kind of mental acute, all sorts of other things. You go read the book, because there's a lot to understand. And again, I tie that into our product because that is our most consistent testimonial. People take it in the morning, report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night.
And that was my experience within day 2. I was sleeping better. Now, a lot of my, the people on the call are familiar in using LifeWave frequency patches. And Chris, I don't know if you are familiar with them. We'll talk afterwards about them.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
But I started MyVitalC before the frequency patches. And because of Heather, who's listening on the call, and my son Jackson, I now have my Aura ring.
Me too.
And woohoo! Yeah. I am still an A student. I get over a 90% with my sleep almost every day, except for yesterday when I had to travel home and I felt it. But I have to say that even though my sleep score was less than great yesterday, just because of the cumulative good sleep, my readiness score was still really good. And my energy's been great. So MyVitalC, I've noticed for sure the sleep. I've noticed a difference in hair and skin. I also, so I know we're going to be talking about a skin product you're coming out with, but I take the actual oil and I'll put it on my skin sometimes, and I see a difference. I love that. I also put a little bit on my hands if there's a little extra drips, so that my hands can anti-age. But I also know that all 5 of us have had COVID, and not one of us had a response. Something that you had mentioned with HIV and the replication of the viruses. My husband deals with herpes, the cold sores, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that is something where you take lysine possibly to stop the replication. Well, I love to know that that's also what MyVitalC is doing, because that's also going to address if you get the current virus we're fighting, because this is being recorded, even though it's a private group.
Yep.
YouTube loves to find all of us. So we do have to be a little bit careful, but that was that, and it stops the cytokine storm, correct?
Yep. That is our understanding. So it's interesting because you talk about cold sores. One of our partners actually would get cold sores, I guess 2 or 3 times a year, and he'd be walking around the office and his would burst, and you'd have a napkin on his lip. And since he started taking the MyVitalC product, he says that prior to the product, he always knew when they were coming, because there would be a sensation, like he could feel them on his lip before they even showed up. And what he says now is he can feel them like they're about to show up, and then now they never show up. So they never manifest. They obviously never burst because they're never coming up. I don't know if that's your husband's same experience, but that is absolutely something. Now, again, let's be very clear. The FDA has not evaluated our product. It's not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. These are just stories that we're sharing, and what you experience may be different. So yeah, it's not just the AIDS virus where there's patents associated with it. There's actually patents related in pets, where there's a protocol that includes the molecule as a cancer preventative and cancer and actually doing some cancer healing in pets. And we have some anecdotal stories that support that. So, you got to be very careful talking about cancer, talking about viruses and all that stuff. Yet, no, we're not making any claims. We're sharing some stories. And in reality, it's probably going to be my company that pushes forward the research to kind of confirm these things. And I know I shared with you, Sarah, at one point with the Oura Ring.
Yeah.
There's a professor, out of the University of California, San Diego. He's an assistant professor, and he's a consultant, a contractor for Oura Ring. And so we've been, well, right before COVID hit, we were working on doing a sleep study with him, having, people who have Oura Rings get access to the backside of the data. There's a whole lot of data. I don't know if you've ever logged into your website portal, but it's an amazing amount of data that's sitting there. With permission, we could confirm what we're getting on a regular basis. Our customers, we're actually continuing. Let me back up. Because of COVID and the ability for the O-ring to identify before you actually have symptoms, it can identify that your temperature has risen and give you a notification, right? I don't know if you've ever on your phone gotten the notification. I've gotten a notification. It didn't happen with COVID. It just happened with something, a cold or whatever I was going through. Because of that and its ability to kind of identify COVID, his name's Benjamin, has basically disappeared because he's working with press, he's working with mass amounts of data. Like you can imagine, there's lots of funding available for COVID research. We were really kind of in a voluntary scenario for researching how MyVitalC helps people sleep. So because that ended, we actually kept moving forward with a survey portion and a study that we're doing with surveys. We don't have as much data behind it, but what we do have is people's interpretations of what's going on. Basically, those people have gone, we had about 20 people go through this. What we do is we get 10 days of data before they start the product, 10 days of data on the product, 10 days of data back off the product, and then 10 days of data back on the product. And consistently we see, and we're asking them questions like, how was your sleep? How was your rest? How did you feel in the morning? And we're consistently seeing when they're taking the MyVitalC formula, that they're experiencing what they're describing as better sleep. So we're excited to be doing that. And again, that goes to like driving study. I don't know if I've got the graphs around here. I mean, I know I have them around here. I just don't know how readily I can find them. But it's been some pretty, amazing results. And again, this is driven out of our customers are telling us they're getting better sleep. So let's actually go ahead and invest in a study that supports or proves what our customers are telling us.
I am just loving, I know you can't make a lot of claims besides the ones that are in those studies, but we can talk about testimonials, can't we?
We can, as long as people who are listening understand that these are anecdotal testimonials. And by the way, I do not like belittling anecdotal testimonials, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's an anecdote, like you should ignore it. And that's actually not how the scientific process works. The scientific process works first with a hypothesis. That hypothesis always comes from anecdotal stories, right? So same with our sleep study. The anecdotal stories are, hey, our customers are reporting better sleep. Great, we're going to do that study. So yeah, we can talk about it. We just have to be very careful. We're not claiming that this is exactly what's going to happen to you if you purchase the product, because we can't yet. The FDA won't allow us to do that yet. But we can certainly talk about it. And when I talk about testimonials, I talk about my personal testimonials, or I talk about testimonials of customers with whom I've had conversations or actually emails, so that we can trace back to that customer. So if my business partner has an amazing testimonial conversation with a customer and shares with me a testimonial, I just don't have that direct path. So I don't share those kinds of testimonials. I like the ones that I've actually had conversations with myself.
Well, how can you address osteoarthritis and pain?
Yeah, so a lot of those are associated with inflammation, right? And you talked about cytokine storm, like your body actually attacking itself. Again, we can't make any claims. I'll share this testimonial we had this guy in our office. I'm trying to think. Yes. So this was interesting because I remember the story because I was working here on a Sunday. This was about 3 years ago, and somebody came knocking on the door, and we don't really have a retail store. So I went and answered the door, and it felt very clandestine. I was like, "Can I help you?" And he's like, "Do you have any ESS 60?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do. Why don't you come in?" This is on a Sunday. I'm by myself. I actually had to figure out how to process his credit card, through our website and everything. But anyway, I remembered him, and about 3 months later, I saw him in our lobby, and I went up to him and I thought, hey, this guy would be able to give a really interesting testimonial. And not only that, but Cassandra, who works up front, she shared with me this was his third purchase. So the first one was the clandestine one, and this was his third purchase. And at the time, this was a long time ago, we were running a bottle on 3 specials, and he was buying 3 bottles. So I'm like, this guy he's got to have an amazing testimonial. So I walked up to him and like, so like, what are you experiencing? And he looked kind of depressed, and he was like, well, Chris, I really haven't noticed anything. And then he goes, and I was a little silent. I'm like, well, that's a little weird. And I get it, because the concrete published research is about longevity. And if you're kind of going down that path, then maybe if you don't experience anything, you keep taking the product. That makes perfect sense. But there was a moment of silence, and then he said, well, does it help with, and he was gesturing towards his knuckles, and does it help with pain? Right. And I was like, well, the FDA hasn't evaluated us for that, but we definitely have some testimonials related to that. And he goes, oh, well, it's definitely helping with the pain in my knuckles. And then he goes, also, I used to have this like click, click, click in my knee, and that's gone. And in my head, I'm like, well, it's a shame nothing's happening for you. and he went on to say, I'm about to go on like the 3rd jog, and I'm jogging again. I haven't jogged in like, I don't know, it was 5 or 8 years or something. And finally, I like this one too, because this is very interesting, and we're more. I think we've been getting this testimonial all along, or something similar, but we're noticing it more, which is, Chris, I have to tell you that at my job, I feel less stress. And let me clarify, it's the same job, it's the same people, it's the same stress. I just feel less stress. And we have other testimonials related to stress and related to, we'll call it overall well-being, that is impacted. Now, that could easily be explained. If you're just getting better sleep, then yes, you're going to feel less stressed in your life. I do think it's a little deeper than that. There's another testimonial that we had. It was an influencer. I got some product to her first video. She goes, I can't remember her name, but she was like, hi, I'm Jill. I'm in the process of quitting smoking. And I thought, oh, I wish you had told me that, because, quitting smoking can be a disastrous experience. I would have preferred you be done quitting smoking, and then we could, try the product. Even though she was in the middle of quitting smoking, she went on to say, I find that I have a longer fuse with my son, which is about, like, again, potentially better sleep, or just about that overall well-being, well-being. And we do see that coming in more and more.
Something that you just touched on, the smoking, my mentor who treats people won't take smokers. Yeah. Because herbs and supplements they may be 5% effective with a smoker. So the fact that she had any response is awesome.
Yeah.
So there was one time that we talked before, how it prevents the growth of fat cells. Yeah. Is that something that you are familiar with, or is that coming from someone else's testimonial?
I think that's probably from another testimonial. Often people are asking, like, does it help with weight loss? And actually weight gain is one of the things that is absolutely, again, go back to the book Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. A lack of sleep is very much associated with weight gain. If you look at people who are exercising intently and going for some sort of competition, they talk about the 3 pillars that ground an amazing athletic performance. One of those is the exercise, of course. The other one is the food, of course. And then the lesser that maybe people don't realize is sleep, right? That's one of the 3 pillars of athletic performance. I don't think I've shared, maybe I've shared this testimonial with you. This is pretty exciting. I actually sent him a note today. The guy's name is Anthony Kunkel, and he's a 2-time U.S. national ultra running champion. So he's about to run a 100-kilometer race and is going to like set the world record. His goal is to set the world record, and he thinks he's on pace to do that. He's the kind of individual who runs 120 miles a week. Which is crazy. I tend to run just about 2 miles right now. So I'd have to run 60 times a week. I don't know how I would even find the time. But his testimonial is pretty amazing. He started off taking 1 serving. He said he didn't really notice much. He switched to 3 servings, and this is what he told me on the phone. And like, wow, there was a big difference. And he went on, and I've got this written testimonial, which is, I don't think that MyVitalC is speeding recovery. What I believe it's doing is preventing damage in the first place, which is amazing. I've never heard anything even parallel to that. And he says that my evidence for this is in the last 10 miles of a 50-mile run, a phrase I've never heard before, actually, but in the last 10 miles, where strength and stability, leg strength and stability were a problem in the past, it's no longer a problem. So yeah, I think that goes into, you know, if you're sleeping well, there is certainly the potential for fat loss and losing weight. I know in my father-in-law's case, it was just a situation where he was using a cane and just had too much knee pain to go for walks. And when he started taking the product, he could start walking again. And it's a no-brainer. Like, okay, now he's walking, and so he lost quite a bit of weight.
Yeah, and it's just it's the cycle of the domino effect of all of these good things starting to happen, and a lack of oxidative stress, right?
Yeah.
So oxidative stress, as you touched on already, is what kills us. It's what shortens our life. Marvy has a question about if we need vitamin C, essentially, when we're taking this. And my take, and tell me if I'm wrong, is number one, most of the people listening are on a low carb ketogenic diet and do intermittent fasting. That in itself lowers oxidative stress in the body. Then you take MyVitalC, which is helping with the oxidative stress. And then also your body isn't needing to make as many antioxidants because you have less oxidative stress to go after, right? So is there a need for vitamin C if you're taking MyVitalC?
I don't take any extra MyVitalC. I mean, any extra vitamin C, right? I take lots of extra MyVitalC because it's readily available. But yeah, I don't take any extra vitamin C. I might do it if I do feel like I'm getting a cold, or because that's where I think that there's some advantage. But yeah, I don't augment really with anything. The only supplement that I take, let's see, I think I take about 4 things. So I take metformin, because there's some really good research on metformin and its age reducing capabilities, and metformin is a diabetic drug, and so I've got a way to get that. So if you need to get it, then you would need to see a physician. I take I get it mixed up sometimes, NMN, which is nicotinamide mononucleotide, which is also associated with age extension of life. The same guy, Dr. Sinclair, who recommends those 2, actually takes resveratrol. I don't take resveratrol. I just don't think the data is that solid for resveratrol. And then from Dr. Gundry, he's got a good polyphenol product. I don't know if you have a polyphenol product, but those are the only things that I take. And of course, MyVitalC. And in fact, my regimen for MyVitalC is in the morning, and you're familiar, most of your audience, I'm sure, is going to be familiar with bulletproof coffee. If not, it's, take good coffee, put in ghee, purified butter, and then add MCT. But we have an MCT product. So instead of using regular MCT, I put in our MCT with ESS 60. And while that's blending, because it's oil and water, need to be blended together, I'll take a teaspoon and a half of our olive oil product. And the typical recommended serving size is 1 teaspoon. So I'm taking more than that. And then when it comes to lunch for my salad, if I'm having a salad, which is most of the time, like today, I'll put some of our avocado product on that. So that's kind of my regime.
Gotcha. And I want to touch on, for those of you listening, metformin is, and I've touched on this before, the berberine HCl. And Chris, I'm happy to send you information on that. Berberine is not a prescription drug. It has been shown to have the exact same effect on blood sugar as metformin in a natural way. So, and
yes, send me that data, please.
I will. And it's combined with HCl in the product I use, which I love for digesting, the harder proteins, and it really breaks down the food in your stomach. So it's a great, I will not go without it. Okay. So Paula is a little confused between the difference between MyVitalC and C60. So,
yeah. So that's a great question. Really, C60 is the molecule discovered in 1985. Again, the professors won the Nobel Prize for that discovery in 1996. And the way we describe it is C60 is for industrial applications. There is actually peer-reviewed published research that shows if you improperly process C60, it's harmful. ESS 60, which is really the kind of the better processed C60 that exists in the MyVitalC product. ESS 60 is C60 that's been processed for safer human consumption. So it's something that we actually tested 22 of the C60 brands on the market. And let me share this kind of the results, and then I'll talk about how this fits in with why I tried not to get into the supplement industry. But we tested 22 of the brands out there, and the way I describe it is most of them were woefully low in concentration, which is a little disappointing. And it fits in exactly why with the reason that it took us so long. So really, the study that showed the extension of life came out in 2012. In mid 2013, we started getting phone calls saying, "Hey, how much in a dose?" And I mentioned to you at that time, we were selling to research institutions around the world, putting it in batteries and solar cells and other industrial applications. Despite the literature saying that it was safe at that time, not only safe, but extended the life of the Wistar rats by 90%, as conservative scientists, we actually put not for human consumption on our labeling in mid 2013. Very interesting. We started the company in 1991. Until mid 2013, we did not have to have not for human consumption on any of our labeling. From 2013 until really the end of 2017, we kept that labeling on and tried to stay out of the supplement industry. One of the reasons we tried to stay out is I found a peer-reviewed published paper that showed that 50% of the supplements that are on the market don't have in them what they say they have in them. And we've been delivering high quality research grade carbon nanomaterials to research institutions around the world. Do we even, our thought process was, do we want to get into a market where people don't have the standards that we have? And ultimately, there was a guy with a big YouTube following towards the end of 2017. Who started sharing all the benefits he was getting from taking the product on a daily basis. And then our phone just blew up. And so we're kind of, hey, here's this kind of entrepreneurial dilemma. Do we want to get into this industry that has some challenges? And I'm glad you're in it and clearing up those challenges, right? Or do we want to just stay in this environment where we're selling carbon nanomaterials? The phone was ringing so much, we stopped and we asked ourselves 2 questions. The first question is, am I comfortable selling the product? That's a moral question. I take it, my wife takes it, everybody on our team takes it. And then the next one is the FDA and the FTC. And you've heard me mention the FDA a couple times on this conversation. You just got to, cross the T's, dot the I's with both the FTC and the FDA. And so that was really when we kind of launched MyVitalC, and really, because of all the amazing testimonials that we're getting from people just like you, Sarah, I'm out here trying to help other people try the ESS 60 and report back the benefits that keep coming in.
So this is going to be a question that you're going to need to be careful with answering, but there's a couple people listening that have breast cancer. What anecdotal information would help them recover? And they've had surgery, maybe the radiation, full of inflammation.
You are right. I have to be very careful here. And I'm thinking about, I remember probably about 2 years ago, I got a call from a lady who was in tears because her father was going through some sort of cancer treatment. And it was a very hard place for me because, in terms of cancer, the research that is available, I'll share two things. One, I mentioned already the patent that's associated with helping treat cancer in pets. And the other one is a very interesting study. This is a Petri dish study. So this is like not the lowest study, but not a study that you like draw a direct parallel. There's a big path between a Petri dish and getting into humans or even pets. But in that study, they took cancer cells and healthy cells, and they introduced an anti-cancer agent, which is always a poison, right? Like that's what an anti-cancer agent, the design of the poison is to take care of the cancer before it damages the healthy cells. In the presence of the ESS60 molecule, the efficacy of the anti-cancer agent against the cancer cells was increased. So more cancer cells died, and it actually had a protective effect for the healthy cells, again, in that Petri dish. We do have some testimonials of pets that were actually, the vet was like this, there's one particular instance with the horse where the horse basically was a dead horse. Like there was nothing that was that's a type of melanoma that horse dies. It's a light-skinned, a white-haired horse. And I actually have photos of that horse and bumped into a vet once, and it was like, hey, can I show you some gross pictures? And I showed him the gross pictures, and he was like, oh yeah, that's a XYZ melanoma. That's a dead horse. Well, that horse is not dead. It's 4 months into that particular study. The owner was very adamant about only using the MyVitalC formula to treat that horse. Treat is probably a strong word. To test on the horse. I mean, that's the right study. That's the right phrase. So this is the best way I think that I can answer it. I don't know that it's going to have an effect or not an effect. What I can say is if my mom were in that situation, I would have her taking double or triple servings.
Well, and just the anti-inflammatory effects in general, right? And the oxidative. So going back to the statement of most people in our industry agree that it's oxidative stress and inflammation that cause death and shortness of life. And you take care of those things, you're extending life on all fronts, whether it's your mental clarity, your physical, your physique, your ability to produce the proper growth hormone and testosterone and the stem cell, like it goes on and on and on and on. So we have a few more minutes left. So let me know if anyone else has any other questions. I know for me, and anecdotally from other people that I know, plantar fasciitis gone, knee pain gone. My hair, we've done how many interviews, Chris? Two, right? And they go back over a year. I still have the same 2 gray hairs that I talked about in the first video, and no more. So and I did have a question. I know that people report better vision, right? And I'm 45. I still don't need glasses. All 3 of my siblings, younger and older, are all wearing glasses because they don't listen to me. Well,
because they're siblings.
Right. One of them starting to listen. What about hearing? Do you see any improvement? Have you heard anything about hearing as far as any testimonials?
No, I am not aware of any testimonials, whether it's from whether it's like even my business partner or one of the customer service reps mentioning it. And certainly I haven't heard anything directly.
Okay, and Beth wanted to say something too.
So I wanted to say thank you, Chris, for the feedback. So as your mom, I'll take 3 servings a day of Vital C. That's what I heard you say.
That is exactly what I would have my mom on. Yes.
Okay. And so like, would I just do it before? Well, I don't do 3 meals a day, but just space it out evenly during the day.
Well, so some people report that if they take it too late in the day, it can keep them up, and it's not a large percentage. So you want to, take it and listen to what your body's saying. I can take it like right before the bed and no problems, but I'm also the weird guy who could drink a cup of coffee and go right to sleep. So I might not be the best.
So how much time in between those 3 doses would you say?
So I would want to space them out in the morning and be done with that 3rd serving by like lunchtime, like with lunch potentially. Okay. And you can, it's not inexpensive. It's a reasonably expensive product. So you can put it on your food, but put it in things like bread that soak it all up. So, so there's no waste.
Yeah. Sarah won't let me eat bread. So.
Yeah, we don't eat.
She's a taskmaster.
That's the last time Chris was on the show.
There you go. And no. And then the other thing that I mentioned to Sarah this morning that she was surprised to hear, she hadn't heard it before. Have you ever tried your Vital C with a little bit of Sarah's ancient salts?
No, I haven't. I would love to try that.
It is
Chris,
awesome. It is awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna
First time I tried it, I was like underwhelmed by the taste, the experience of it. I should say.
Yeah.
And then I'm telling myself, it's olive oil. You love olive oil. Well, what do you do with olive oil? Well, you put it on vegetables and you roast it with salt. I'm like, got it, clicked. So I put a little of her salt on my tongue along with it when I took it.
Yeah.
And it's like a treat. It's like dessert.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, there you go.
Trying that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll send you a little sample of our salt when we're, tomorrow morning. So, well, any other questions? We've got 2 more minutes. And Jenny, yes, the improved vision in the LifeWave patches, those will work synergistically. I mean, that's why I'll talk to you, Chris, about the LifeWave stem cell patches, because the studies you're doing is just with one product, and then everyone else is doing both products. There's no study. I mean, the synergy between these different biohacks are just awesome. And it's gonna, and I'm super excited. Do you want to touch on the skincare? Yeah. In the last minute?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if Jenny, it looked like Jenny might have had a question. I'm not sure. Nope. Okay. So we are kind of wrapping up. We're just working on the packaging for it's a face serum. And the genesis of this was really interesting. One of the consistent testimonials that we get is about improvements in hair, which you mentioned, improvements in skin, and actually increased nail growth. By the way, all of those things are attributes that your body throws away when you're unhealthy and come back when you're healthier, right? So having increased hair growth, increased nail growth is a sign of your body being healthy enough to focus on really the aesthetics of those things, right? So internally, we just consuming it internally, which is the only way you can consume it. So just consuming it, people were reporting, good effects on hair and skin. And then just like you described, Sarah, where people might have an extra drop or 2 and they're applying it to their skin, that started pushing some even further better testimonials. And we're like, okay, well, let's put together a face serum product. And that's about to launch. We're really just kind of wrapping up labeling, and we'll have it on the website soon. And I will send you some. Actually, we've got the product, so I'm going to send you some kind of early stuff, Sarah, awesome. And even one that's a step above that, because we've got kind of a situation where 2 products together, our belief, because they're both well researched, are going to add a lot of value.
Awesome. Okay, we have time for one more question. That's Brenda. Did you have a question?
Yeah, more maybe a comment. I just wanted to say great call, Chris and Sarah. Thank you so much, and answered a lot of my questions previously that I was thinking. I just wanted to share too that before I met Sarah, my husband was buying products from her line, and he told me, because I started traveling a lot back east, And that right when everything was, coming in and I was flying back and forth, and he said, you have to take MyVitalC. You have to take this. This is like the holy grail of you traveling. You have to have this. So I took it before, during my time there, and after. And I just feel like my immune system was like, super strong. I never got sick. I haven't been sick. And I just thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And you
Awesome.
mentioned flying. Because of the better sleep, so my wife and I took a trip to Russia and felt very little, if any, jet lag. So I don't know if you've noticed like an improvement in being able to handle the time zone differences. Yeah, like that's something that I don't know. And Sarah, I need to show you some of our new packaging, which is a little bit more focused, and so maybe we'll be interested in it. But maybe I need to make like an anti-jet lag packaging, because that's obviously a real thing. And for
Yeah.
those people who travel, it'd be very nice to have something to help mitigate that pain.
Yeah, absolutely. I flew yesterday.
Ouch.
It's not my favorite thing to do. Well, we are out of time, Chris. This was awesome. So thank you so much. And I will be sending out this recording. I'll share it with you as well. And then I want to hop on a call with you either later this afternoon or tomorrow.
Okay, that sounds cool. If we don't have, I'll send a link so that we can get that scheduled. Thank you for having me, Sarah.
All right, everybody. Have a great Monday.
Bye. Nice to meet you.
Bye.